Nestled at the end of a tree-lined street, my neighborhood radiated charm, a peaceful enclave where generations of families had built their lives. Each morning, the sun spilled through the canopy of leaves, casting golden patterns across the sidewalks where children played joyfully, their laughter mingling with the chirping of birds. The streets were adorned with well-tended gardens bursting with color, and neighbors greeted each other with warmth and familiarity. It was a place steeped in history. Many homes had stood for decades, each brick telling a story, each porch a gathering spot for conversations that stretched into twilight. In this serene setting, longtime residents took pride in knowing one another. We celebrated holidays together, swapped baked goods on special occasions, and tended to one another's needs, whether by watching over pets while families were away or offering a helping hand during home repairs. This was more than just a collection of houses. It was a tightly knit community that thrived on trust and collaboration. As I sat on my porch and sipped coffee on quiet mornings, I'd often reflect on our neighborhood's rich tapestry, the shared moments that had woven us all together. Older couples reminiscing about how they met at local dances, young families excitedly planning birthday parties, and retirees taking strolls down familiar paths contributed to an irreplaceable atmosphere of belonging. However, amidst this tranquility, an undercurrent of impending change rippled through our lives. Little did we know that the Homeowners Association, HOA, which ostensibly existed to protect our interests, secretly harbored ambitious plans to reshape our community. They presented themselves as advocates for progress but were oblivious to the deep roots we had cultivated over the years. As whispers of their redevelopment strategies surfaced, plans threatening to demolish cherished homes for some elusive greater good, a veil of uncertainty began to shroud our once peaceful surroundings. It was then that I understood the fragility of what we had built together. A community unified by tradition was now facing an existential threat. But I also realized that beneath this seemingly bleak situation lay an opportunity to rise up and fight back against encroaching darkness. As the sun rose on an ordinary Tuesday, the atmosphere crackled with tension when the Homeowners Association, HOA, called a special meeting. The usually welcoming community center stood as a stark contrast to the anxiety swirling within. Neighbors gathered in clusters of worried whispers, their coffee cups forgotten as apprehension hung in the air. None of us could have anticipated the weight of what was to come. When HOA President Mrs. Thompson finally approached the podium, she spoke with an unsettling calmness that belied the storm brewing around us. She outlined an aggressive redevelopment plan aimed at transforming our beloved neighborhood into a modern living enclave, complete with upscale shopping, new homes, and green spaces. But beneath her polished presentation lay an unsettling reality. This meant demolishing homes, uprooting families, and ultimately displacing long-standing residents. The news hit us like a tidal wave, rippling through the audience and creating a wave of disbelief and fear. Friends exchanged stunned looks. Neighbors who had attended barbecues together just last summer now found themselves grappling with the harsh possibility of separation. How could we leave behind not just houses, but homes imbued with memories? As she continued her speech, claims of greater good and community enrichment echoed hollowly against the backdrop of our history. Many residents pored over attendance details from meetings they'd never known about or decisions made far from their influence, decisions that dictated our futures. Some murmured dissent while others simply sat in shocked silence, hearts racing with concern for their families' security. In the weeks that followed, news of these plans spread like wildfire through emails and hastily organized block meetings. The threat felt imminent. People began to discuss escape routes, their options for selling and uprooting, while others clung desperately to hope, forming small groups to fight back against this onslaught. Fear swept across our community as emotions ran high. Some residents felt defeated, contemplating selling their homes against their better judgment to avoid turmoil. I could see it in their faces, worry etched into troubled brows and tight lips, a shared anxiety binding us together even as it threatened to pull us apart. But sometimes, the right information at the right time changes everything, just like hitting subscribe to this channel could be the first step in your own fight for justice. Stick around, because this battle is just getting started, but back to the story. It was time for action. We could either fall silent or rise up and protect everything we held dear. As the days passed following the HOA meeting, my feelings oscillated between anger and sorrow. It was hard to shake the chilling realization that my sanctuary, a house filled with laughter and memories, was now perceived as just another asset ripe for redevelopment. Each wall held echoes of cherished moments, birthdays celebrated, quiet evenings spent with family, and the simple comforts of daily life. I felt the weight of those memories pressing down on me, intensifying my resolve to fight back against this threat. The pressure from the HOA began to seep into every corner of my existence. They approached me under the guise of concern, suggesting that selling my home was in my best interest. "Think of the greater good," they said, as if they could lessen the impact of their proposed changes. But those words felt hollow, like a poorly forged promise. How could they claim to act for the community when their plans threatened to erase it? I remember standing in my backyard one evening, watching the gentle sway of the trees and listening to the familiar sounds of laughter from neighbors gathering for dinner. It all struck me then, the rich tapestry of life that had formed over decades, built on trust and connection. I could not fathom leaving all of this behind simply to make way for something that seemed so disconnected from our lives. The pressure mounted as I learned that many of my neighbors were considering their options, some already discussing offers and potential moving plans. The thought of seeing families I had known for years uprooted caused a deep ache in my heart. We were not just neighbors, we were friends who had weathered storms together, sharing joys and sorrows alike. The prospect of losing that cohesion was unbearable. Yet amidst this turmoil, a spark ignited within me. I realized that our collective fear could morph into strength if we chose to confront this challenge together. My emotional ties to my home and community fueled my determination to protect what we had built over the years. It was time to stand up against this encroaching darkness, not only for myself, but for everyone who called this neighborhood home. The battle for our identity had just begun, and I was ready to fight tooth and nail to keep it alive. As I wrestled with the anxiety surrounding our neighborhood's future, a realization dawned upon me, one that had been quietly lurking in the background all along. I was not just a resident worrying about the destruction of my home, I was also the owner of the town's local newspaper. This secret, my hidden power, could serve as an influential tool in our battle against the HOA's oppressive plans. In the weeks leading to the HOA meeting, I had kept a low profile. Though I published regular editions filled with community news and events, I'd intentionally refrained from revealing my ownership, allowing myself to exist within both worlds, the ordinary life of a neighbor and the strategic mindset of a journalist. But now, that duality would be instrumental in shining a light on the shady dealings of the HOA. With renewed determination, I set out to thoroughly investigate their practices. My access to information allowed me to dig deeper than most residents could, uncovering minutes from closed meetings and whispers of corruption among board members. As I sifted through documents and spoke with anonymous sources, a picture began to emerge. Kickbacks exchanged for favorable zoning decisions and lucrative contracts being passed under the table were just a few pieces of an intricate puzzle. Harnessing this information felt exhilarating. The very community that had given me so much now called for someone to stand up for it, and I was uniquely positioned to do so. Armed with evidence, I crafted an article that wove together not only facts but also the heartache of families facing dislocation. With each word, I aimed to evoke the emotional weight of what we stood to lose. When my exposé finally hit the headlines, it sent shockwaves through our town. What had begun as whispers of dissent transformed into powerful conversations as residents rallied together, not just in fear, but with a renewed sense of purpose. My hidden identity became part of a larger narrative pushing back against an unjust force. It was proof that even within chaos, hope and resilience can rise. I realized then that my role went beyond mere observation. It became one of leadership and advocacy. As voices grew louder in response to my revelations, I knew we had embarked on a journey not just to protect homes, but to reclaim our community's integrity. We wouldn't merely survive, we would thrive as we fought for what was rightfully ours. Once the decision to investigate the HOA was made, a surge of determination coursed through me. With my role as the newspaper owner now fully realized, I knew I had to act swiftly and strategically. The first step was to gather all relevant information regarding the HOA's dealings. I started by reviewing past issues of my own newspaper for any coverage related to the HOA. It was surprising how little had been reported. Most residents were unaware of the extent of their power or any questionable actions. Next, I contacted former members of the HOA and other community insiders who might provide insight. Many were hesitant at first, understandably wary of reprisal, but some eventually opened up about their experiences. One former board member shared tales of meetings conducted behind closed doors, decisions made without community input, and whispered rumors about financial kickbacks tied to development contracts. This was precisely what I needed, evidence that could help unravel their facade. With each conversation, my investigation deepened. I sought out public records on zoning approvals, building permits, and financial disclosures related to development projects in our neighborhood. A careful review revealed discrepancies, a pattern suggesting that certain developers consistently received favorable treatment from the HOA in exchange for undisclosed benefits. These findings painted a troubling picture of corruption that extended well beyond mere incompetence. Realizing the significance of these revelations, I began to compile everything into an organized format. My plan was not just to report on these issues, but to craft a narrative that showcased both the facts and the emotional stakes involved: the loss of homes, families torn apart, and a beloved community under threat. To bolster my efforts, I decided to approach residents directly with flyers detailing my investigation and inviting them to share their stories and concerns. This grassroots approach not only gathered more information, but also helped rally support from neighbors who were eager to fight back against an entity they felt had betrayed them. As more pieces fell into place, it became clear we weren't just facing an HOA, we were confronting systemic corruption that endangered our entire way of life. With each finding documented and every story shared, I felt hope surge alongside my resolve. The truth would prevail, and together we would stand against this encroaching darkness threatening our community's heart and soul. As I delved deeper into my investigation, the extent of the corruption within the HOA became startlingly clear. The more I uncovered, the more the pieces fell into place, revealing a web of unethical practices that had long been hidden from residents. One former board member revealed how certain developers had been favored in exchange for lavish gifts and financial incentives, a practice that blurred the lines between community service and personal gain. In one instance, I discovered a series of emails that detailed an agreement between the HOA and a prominent developer. This developer was slated to undertake a massive project in our neighborhood, one that would replace our beloved homes with luxury condos. In return for their support, the HOA had allegedly agreed to expedite zoning changes without proper public consultation. The emails contained casual references to business lunches, where these deals were struck, hinting at a cozy relationship that benefited only a select few while jeopardizing countless families. I also stumbled upon public records that showed disturbing discrepancies in zoning applications. While most requests underwent rigorous scrutiny, there were notable exceptions for this developer, applications that seemed to sail through the approval process without any justification. It became evident that these preferential treatments were not coincidental. They pointed toward systemic issues within the HOA itself. But perhaps most troubling was the revelation of conflicts of interest among board members. A few individuals held financial stakes in companies linked to projects proposed by the HOA. One board member's spouse was directly connected to construction firms involved in approved developments, raising serious ethical questions about their ability to objectively serve our community's interests. With each new piece of evidence, my resolve hardened. I meticulously documented everything, aware that this information could not only expose individual wrongdoings, but also serve as a rallying cry for residents who felt powerless against these corrupt forces. As I prepared my findings for publication, I envisioned how residents would react once they learned about these practices. The shock would inevitably turn into anger and determination. My goal was not just to inform, but to empower our community to take action against those who had exploited their trust. The truth needed to be laid bare, and with each revelation penned down, I felt a growing sense of urgency. It was time to shine a spotlight on these injustices and galvanize our neighborhood into taking a stand against the very entity meant to protect us. The fight for our homes was transforming into something much larger, a battle against corruption itself. When my exposé detailing the HOA's corruption was finally published, its impact rippled through our neighborhood like a shockwave. As residents read the article, a mix of disbelief and anger washed over them, igniting a fire that had long been simmering beneath the surface. What had felt like an insurmountable threat transformed into a rallying point for our community, a catalyst that galvanized us to take action. The very next day, neighbors gathered at my front porch, faces illuminated not just by the morning sun but by newfound determination. Conversations buzzed with urgency as people shared their own fears and stories, tales of family traditions tied to their homes, memories etched within every wall, and hopes now endangered by the HOA's plans. We were no longer isolated voices. We were united in a common cause, and the energy in the air was palpable. Word quickly spread about an upcoming town hall meeting, allowing the community to come together and strategize. For the first time, I saw people stand up from their chairs, declaring their willingness to fight back. Flyers circulated, created by those who felt inspired to contribute in whatever way they could, whether it was attending meetings, organizing protests, or speaking out against the HOA in public forums. As we prepared for this meeting, I saw people connect in ways they hadn't before. Longtime neighbors who had once only exchanged pleasantries became allies as they shared ideas on how to confront our adversary. The sense of solidarity grew stronger. We began forming committees focused on different aspects of our resistance, from legal advice and community outreach to communication strategies and event planning. During the town hall meeting, residents were emboldened to voice their concerns openly. The room filled with passionate speeches that brought tears to many eyes, weaving together personal tales of love for our neighborhood with a collective call to action. It became clear that we all wanted the same thing: to preserve our homes and protect our community from being torn apart. As we organized protests and petition drives, local businesses began to show their support. Some offered resources, while others contributed supplies for signs and banners. The movement was gaining traction. Social media buzzed with hashtags promoting our cause, further amplifying our voices beyond the confines of our neighborhood. In that moment, I realized we weren't just fighting against development plans. We were standing up for each other and against corruption that threatened not only our homes, but also the very fabric of our community. Hope surged within me as I witnessed what unity could accomplish. The fight had only just begun, but we were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. As the community's resistance against the HOA gained momentum, tensions began to escalate, leading to confrontations that underscored the divisions within our neighborhood. The regular monthly meetings of the HOA transformed from routine gatherings into battlegrounds where opposing views clashed fiercely. Residents who once exchanged pleasantries were now standing on opposite sides of a growing divide. At one particularly charged meeting, I arrived early to find my neighbors gathered in small groups, voices low but urgent. The atmosphere was thick with anxiety, and as I took my seat, I could sense the palpable fear of what lay ahead. When the HOA president, Mrs. Thompson, took the floor, her calm demeanor did little to assuage the rising unrest among residents. As she presented the development plans with a rehearsed smile, murmurs of discontent erupted from the crowd. "Have you even considered what this will do to our community?" one resident shouted, his voice trembling with emotion. "You're talking about demolishing homes where families have lived for generations." The tension escalated as other residents chimed in, echoing their fears and frustrations. In response, Mrs. Thompson attempted to dismiss concerns with vague assurances about community benefits and growth opportunities, but her words fell flat against the mounting frustration. A heated exchange ensued, with accusations flying back and forth. The air crackled with anger as more residents stood to voice their opposition, their faces flushed and passionate. Outside of these meetings, personal encounters only heightened the conflict. One afternoon, while picking up groceries, I overheard two neighbors arguing near the checkout line. "I can't believe you're still supporting this ridiculous plan. Don't you care about our homes?" one exclaimed, pointing an accusatory finger at her counterpart who had been vocal in favor of the redevelopment proposal. Their argument echoed in my ears long after I left the store. It illustrated how deeply divided we had become. The public meetings attracted media attention as well, further amplifying our struggles. Reporters arrived with cameras and notebooks in hand, eager to capture our battles against an HOA that seemed increasingly out of touch with its constituents. Local news segments highlighted not only our protests, but also personal stories that resonated with viewers. Families fighting for their homes became symbols of a larger struggle against unchecked power. As tempers flared and emotions ran high during these encounters, it became clear that we were no longer just combating a redevelopment plan. We were engaged in a fight for our identity as a community. Each confrontation brought us closer together as we recognized that we needed to stand united against those who sought to dismantle everything we held dear. The stakes felt higher than ever, igniting a fire within us that could not be extinguished, a resolve to reclaim our neighborhood from those who had betrayed its spirit. As tensions escalated, the HOA and community members began to engage in legal maneuvers that would set the stage for an intense confrontation. The HOA, feeling the pressure from the growing resistance, sought to expedite their redevelopment plans by filing for zoning changes that would allow them to bypass certain regulations. They argued that these changes were necessary for economic growth and revitalization, presenting themselves as champions of progress. In response, residents organized a coalition, pooling resources to consult with legal experts who specialized in real estate and tenant rights. They understood that defending their homes required more than just passionate speeches. They needed a strategic approach to counter the HOA's aggressive tactics. This grassroots effort led to packed meetings where lawyers educated residents on their rights, explaining how they could legally challenge zoning alterations and evictions. As we navigated this complex landscape, I took on a role not just as a journalist, but also as an advocate for our community. Mobilizing neighbors to gather evidence became imperative. We documented instances where the HOA had failed to provide adequate notice for meetings or had not followed proper procedures in their development plans. Armed with this information, our legal team filed motions to halt the impending changes, asserting that the HOA was operating outside its authorized powers. The stakes grew higher when eviction notices began appearing on doorsteps, targeting families who had been vocal against the HOA's plans. This ignited outrage among residents and solidified our resolve. A rally was organized at the town square, the heart of our community, to publicly denounce these actions and express solidarity with those affected by the threats of displacement. Signs proclaiming messages like "Our homes, our rights" filled the streets, accompanied by speeches from residents sharing their heartfelt stories about what home meant to them. Media coverage intensified during this period, drawing attention not just to our plight, but also to the questionable practices of the HOA. Reports highlighted how many families were at risk of losing their homes, while others profited from dubious dealings behind closed doors. This external pressure forced the HOA into a defensive position as they tried to manage public perception while simultaneously pushing forward their agenda. Despite facing significant legal challenges and emotional turbulence, a sense of unity emerged within our community. With each passing day, we transformed fear into action, gathering petitions, preparing for court hearings, and ensuring that every voice was heard in both legal and public spheres. We stood firmly together against not just potential evictions, but against a system that threatened to dismantle our community's very essence. The battle was far from over, but we were prepared to fight for what was rightfully ours, our homes and our neighborhood's integrity. The turning point came unexpectedly during a pivotal town hall meeting that drew an unprecedented crowd. Anticipation thrummed in the air as residents packed the community center, eagerly awaiting the opportunity to voice their concerns and frustrations. Tensions ran high, but there was also a palpable sense of unity, an understanding that our collective voice had power. As soon as the meeting was called to order, the HOA board members took their seats at the front, tight-lipped and seemingly unperturbed by the throng of neighbors boiling over with questions. Mrs. Thompson resumed her position as spokesperson, delivering a rehearsed presentation extolling the virtues of redevelopment while glossing over the displacement of families. But something shifted in that moment. Witnessing the strength and determination radiating from gathered residents transformed my own resolve. The first few remarks from community members echoed through the room with passion, shaking off any apprehension they might have felt before stepping up to speak. Each resident who took the mic told their story one by one. They laid bare the emotional ties we all shared with our homes and community. "I've lived here for 30 years, one woman shouted, her voice cracking with emotion. "My children grew up playing in these streets. You can't just tear it all down in the name of progress." Applause erupted around her, fueling a chain reaction of enthusiastic support as others rallied behind her words. The more people spoke out, the stronger our resolve became. The board's facade started to crack under this wave of defiance. Several members exchanged uneasy glances as anger turned to outright fury among residents. Demonstrators outside held banners proclaiming, "Homes not condos," while chants reached fever pitch through open windows. In that heated atmosphere, I sensed a shift in public opinion, a transformation that hadn't been possible until now. Local news reporters captured the unfolding events on camera, showcasing not just our discontent, but also our communal spirit. As I witnessed how this convergence of voices galvanized support within our neighborhood and drew attention from outside media outlets, a new plan began to form in my mind. We needed to escalate our efforts, to turn the heat up on both public opinion and legal action against an HOA whose time had come to be held accountable. The tides were turning firmly against them. What started as anxious whispers had evolved into roaring cries for justice, a tipping point where fear metamorphosed into resilience. We were no longer just fighting for our homes. We were standing together against corruption, ensuring that those who sought to dismantle what we cherished would face overwhelming resistance at every turn. In this moment, everything felt possible. The war against injustice was just beginning, and we were ready for battle. Each chant for our homes echoed like a battle cry, a movement fueled by love, loyalty, and an unwavering determination to hold our ground together. The climactic showdown with the HOA leadership arrived at a packed town hall meeting, where tensions, passion, and determination reached a boiling point. The atmosphere crackled with energy as residents gathered to confront the board members directly, their collective resolve unwavering. Armed with evidence of corruption and a united front, we were ready to hold them accountable for their actions. As I took my place at the front of the room, I felt a rush of adrenaline. Hundreds of eyes were focused not just on me, but on the injustice we had all endured together. Mrs. Thompson and her fellow board members sat rigidly at the front, wearing expressions that betrayed both anxiety and defiance. It was clear they were unprepared for the wave of determination about to crash upon them. When I stepped up to present our findings, my voice echoed through the hall. This isn't just about homes, this is about our community's integrity. We have witnessed unethical practices from this board, kickbacks, illegal zoning changes, and conflicts of interest that you've buried beneath your claims of progress. The room erupted in applause and shouts of support. One by one, residents rose to share their stories, people who had built lives in this neighborhood for decades, who had planted roots deep within the soil. A local teacher spoke passionately about how her classroom was filled with children whose families would be displaced by these plans, while a retired firefighter recounted his memories of serving the community he loved. Each speaker added fuel to the fire, igniting our collective outrage. As emotions swelled, Mrs. Thompson attempted to regain control, offering half-hearted reassurances that the board would consider community concerns. But her words only stoked the flames of dissent as people shouted back in disbelief. "You don't care about us, you care about profits." The confrontation reached its peak when several residents began chanting, "Homes not condos, united in purpose and heart." This chant resonated throughout the hall, echoing our shared desire to protect what we held dear. The HOA leaders looked increasingly cornered. It was evident that their authority was crumbling under the weight of our resolve. As media cameras captured every moment, I felt a surge of hope wash over me. This was more than just a moment, it was a movement, a stand against oppression that would reverberate beyond our neighborhood boundaries. We weren't just participants in a local debate anymore, we were warriors fighting for our future. With each passing moment in that heated confrontation, it became clear, no longer would we allow fear or apathy to dictate our lives. We stood strong as one community, bravely challenging an authority that had long taken us for granted. Together, we forged a powerful message. Our homes mattered more than any development scheme, and we were committed to safeguarding our neighborhood's spirit until the very end. The moment of victory arrived when the official announcement was made that the HOA's redevelopment plans had been formally blocked. A celebratory roar erupted from the gathered crowd at the community center, a swell of joy and relief washing over everyone as disbelief turned into elation. Residents, armed with their chants and passion, had succeeded in defending their homes and the essence of their neighborhood. Friends embraced, tears flowed, and laughter rang out, all celebrating what we had accomplished together. This victory marked not just an end to a contentious battle, but also a significant shift in how residents viewed each other and their community. Once divided by differing opinions about the redevelopment, we were now unified by a common cause, a shared experience that solidified our bonds. Conversations flourished among neighbors who had only exchanged polite greetings before. Now, they highlighted past experiences and dreams for future gatherings in the very homes we saved. In the weeks following our triumph, a tangible transformation took place throughout the neighborhood. Decorations appeared on porches indicating newfound pride. Dream catchers hung alongside vibrant flowers, families hosted block parties to celebrate their community spirit, and children played freely in yards they could now call home without fear of eviction or destruction. The sense of belonging blossomed where anxiety once thrived. Even within local businesses that supported our cause during the protests, there was a flare of optimism. Store owners began organizing community events, farmers' markets on Saturdays where residents showcased their crafts and homemade goods, further strengthening our interconnectedness. These endeavors became symbols of resilience, demonstrating that we were not just fighting to keep our physical spaces, but also nurturing the culture that defined our lives. As I strolled through the neighborhood, vibrant murals adorned fences depicting our journey. the fights we undertook together immortalized in art celebrating unity against oppression. It was an invigorating reminder that what started as fear had morphed into creativity born from our collective struggle. Reflecting on this experience turned victory, I realized that it extended far beyond preserving homes. It engendered a renewed sense of agency within each resident. We discovered not only our strength, but also the importance of standing firm for one another when faced with adversity. As we moved forward, our collective identity evolved into something more powerful than any original intent, an unyielding community spirit united by love for our homes, and an unwavering determination to preserve its character against threats both seen and unseen. United in this endeavor, we resolved to keep watch over what mattered most, each other and the sacred ground upon which we built not just houses, but thriving lives woven together through shared experiences and relentless hope. In the wake of our hard-fought victory against the HOA, the dynamic within our neighborhood underwent a profound transformation. Where once there had been uncertainty and division, a new spirit of camaraderie began to flourish. Residents who had previously shared only polite nods or brief exchanges at social functions were now engaging in heartfelt conversations and deepening friendships forged in the fires of resistance. Neighbors spent more time together, attending informal gatherings on front porches, sharing meals, and organizing community events that celebrated not just their victory, but also the unique qualities of their shared home. As we relished moments like summer barbecues and movie nights in the park, it became clear that these connections extended far beyond the fight itself. We were nurturing relationships that would stand strong long after the dust from the conflict settled. Additionally, local artists began taking inspiration from our journey, creating murals depicting our community's triumph over adversity. Each artwork emblazoned on fences and walls became a symbol, a reminder of what we had accomplished together and a testament to our resilience. The visual reminders of our struggle fostered pride and unity among residents. Every brushstroke told a story of courage. The experience also led to a newfound sense of responsibility towards preserving the character of our neighborhood. Residents formed a dedicated committee focused on ensuring that future developments remained inclusive and reflective of what made our community unique. We held workshops that encouraged everyone to share their visions for what our neighborhood should remain. This collaborative effort sparked fresh ideas about community gardens, art installations, and preserving green spaces. Our commitment to advocacy was evident as neighbors took part in town meetings with renewed vigor, not only voicing their opinions but also encouraging others to participate. This empowered atmosphere meant that even those who had previously felt hesitant to speak up now found their voice among friends. For many, it was liberating. They enjoyed a sense of agency they'd never known before. Local businesses recognized this shift too. They became more invested in the community's well-being by sourcing supplies from each other and supporting local initiatives. The interdependence forged through this struggle made every purchase meaningful. Each dollar spent nurtured the very spirit of resilience we had cultivated together. As I reflected on all these changes, it was heartening to realize that we were no longer merely individuals living in close proximity. We had evolved into a community rooted in solidarity and trust. What emerged from conflict was not just a neighborhood saved from redevelopment, but a holistic bond strengthened by shared experiences. Together, we sat poised for any future challenges that might arise, assured in our ability to unite again for the greater good, always ready to safeguard the essence of our cherished homes. Reflecting on our journey, I am filled with a profound sense of resilience and hope. What began as a struggle against an oppressive HOA evolved into a powerful testament to the strength of community advocacy. Our fight was not just about preserving homes, it became a movement that showcased the importance of standing together for our rights and values. The bonds we forged during this arduous battle transformed our neighborhood into a vibrant tapestry woven from shared experiences, hopes, and dreams. Throughout this experience, I witnessed firsthand how adversity can galvanize people into action. Neighbors who once felt isolated or hesitant to voice their concerns found their voices amid the clamor for justice. Together, we cultivated an environment where every opinion mattered and every story contributed to a larger narrative of community resilience. This newfound empowerment was transformative. It instilled in us the belief that we could effect change when united by common purpose. The murals decorating our streets now serve as constant reminders of our collective struggle, a history etched in color that honors not only our victory, but also the rich cultural significance of our neighborhood. We embraced our identities as guardians of this space, committed to ensuring that future generations would also have the opportunity to call it home. Our commitment to safeguarding this character has fostered ongoing conversations about inclusivity and sustainability in future developments. Residents actively participate in planning discussions, advocating for green spaces, community gardens, and local art initiatives that reflect our unique heritage. We learn that preserving our living spaces extends beyond physical structures. It encompasses the spirit and culture embodied within them. As I look ahead, I carry renewed hope that we can continue to protect what makes our neighborhood special. No longer do we view challenges as insurmountable obstacles. Instead, they are opportunities for growth and solidarity. The lessons learned through this journey resonate deeply within us. Unity is strength, resilience breeds hope, and advocacy is essential in preserving the fabric of our community. In conclusion, while we may have faced significant trials, what emerged from those struggles is a legacy of courage that will inspire future residents to stand firm against any threats they may encounter. Together, we've built more than just homes. We've created a sanctuary filled with love, respect, and unwavering commitment to each other, a place where everyone can thrive amidst the richness of culture and community spirit. This is not only a victory, but also an enduring promise to uphold the values we hold dear for generations to come. As I reflect on our journey, I feel compelled to extend a call to action for others who may find themselves facing similar challenges in their own communities. The struggle against the HOA was not just about defending our homes. It was about standing up for rights, preserving cultural heritage, and ensuring that every voice is heard. I urge anyone impacted by oppressive forces to harness the power of community advocacy, as we did, and to leverage local platforms for transparency and justice. Community members must recognize that change does not happen in isolation. It requires unity, collaboration, and unwavering support for one another. Engage with your neighbors, attend local meetings, and voice your concerns. Share your stories and uplift those around you. Let each personal experience serve as a cornerstone for mutual understanding and collective action against injustice. Transparency is key to holding powerful entities accountable. Demand open communication from local leadership about decisions affecting your community. Utilize social media, local newspapers, and public forums to shine a light on any questionable activities or practices. Highlight the importance of community participation in governance. Everyone deserves a say in shaping the environment they live within. Advocacy extends beyond just immediate conflicts. It is a lifelong commitment to preserving the unique character of your neighborhood. Encourage initiatives that foster connection and collaboration, such as community gardens, art projects, or cultural events that celebrate diversity and heritage. Show the world what makes your community special through creativity and shared experiences. Let these become your armor against those who would see it dismantled. Moreover, connect with local organizations dedicated to sustainable development and tenant rights. They can provide resources, legal guidance, and support networks essential for navigating challenging situations. Remember that you are not alone. There are many who share your vision and passion for safeguarding the places we call home. In sharing our success story, I hope to instill hope in those currently fighting their battles. Let our victory be evidence that perseverance pays off, that when we come together as a united front for justice and integrity, we can triumph over adversity. Ultimately, it's our responsibility to nurture our communities for future generations, to ensure that they inherit spaces filled with love, culture, and identity. So stand tall, find your voice, and act boldly. Your community needs you now more than ever. Together, we can create lasting change that honors the spirit of resilience we all possess, transforming struggles into victories that resonate through time.